Alrighty, guys, thanks so much for joining us this morning. This is for many of you a follow-up training to the work that we did together several weeks ago to learn how to enter your unit plans. Today's portion is going to be about the entry of individual employee objectives into ECM. And so I know that I have a few managers who may not be required to put in the unit plan. So in your department, you have employees who report to you that you'll need to enter objectives for, but you don't necessarily enter a unit plan. So, and then of course, then there are the deans who are sort of going to do both. So I'm going to kind of roll back and start at the beginning since this is being recorded and I'm not sure if it's going to be a manager or who's going to watch this later for information. I just want to go through what ECM is and how we're going to be using it for the strategic plan. So previously, before this year, we entered unit plans and budget requests into Compliance Assist, which is a software suite that has several different database applications where we store assessment and other information for SACS accreditation. So this new strategic plan that we started, or that we're going to start rather, for fall 2021 is a bit different from the previous. So we are very lucky to have Collis Hoffman and Connie Hoffman be able to really tailor make this database and add it to our suite of applications that we use in ECM already for a lot of different tasks, and I guess it's tools for both student services and for academic affairs. So from this point forward, faculty or program coordinators and deans will still enter student learning outcomes over in Compliance Assist Planning. But from now on, strategic plan items specific to unit plans and budget requests and these individual employee objectives will be put over in ECM. So if you've never logged into ECM before, you can reach out for help, but I am going to show you sort of how to get to the system. There is, of course, a link out on SharePoint, but also you can just get to it from the OC Tech main page. If you click on Faculty Staff Access, Enrollment and Case Management, which we refer to as ECM, is the last link here. So once you click there, then you'll be taken to a login page. So as I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of different applications that are in this system, but thankfully it's single sign-on. So for many of us over at Academic Affairs, we may use, 5 or 6 different applications, but we'll log in with just one password now, and that's a recent change, which is very nice. So if you are logging in for the first time, you'll put in your email address and then you'll be prompted to set up a password. If you have questions or problems, you can reach out to me or you can reach out to Collis Hoffman. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. So it shows me what I have access to. I go ahead and enter my password. Roll in here. And then it just brings me to the application that I clicked on. So you access whatever you need here on the left panel. This little arrow here is going to be a drop down to all of my applications. So today we're going to be working in strategic planning, which is the bottom one at the bottom of this list here. So depending on your level of access, whether you're a manager or a dean or a vice president or an admin, you're going to see different links over here depending on what you can see, what you have access to. So there's a lot of this you may not be able to see, but I'm going to take you through the sort of accessing of what you need to put in employee objectives, which is what we're talking about today. So the planning year, whatever year that we're currently in that you're supposed to enter data for, it's going to take you there automatically, which is nice. So for right now, we don't need this, but 5 years from now, when we have 5 years of data in here, this drop down is going to allow us to choose the year that we need to access data for. So for right now, we're in 21-22. You don't really have to do anything, but going forward, you may, if you need to go back a year and print, then you'll access it through that drop down. You will not see this administration link. If you have access to create a unit plan, so deans, you guys can see this create unit plan link. Astrid, you won't be able to. All you're going to see is create employee objectives and update employee objectives, since you don't do a unit plan. So it's tailor-made to whatever it is you're responsible for doing. When you log in, that's what you can see. And then, of course, down here at the bottom, there is a reports section. So the report that will be specific to what we're working with today is down here in employee objectives. So once you've entered all the objectives for the employees who report to you, if it's, like I know in Astrid's case, it's not going to be very many, so you may not even feel like you need to use that employee objectives report. However, for the deans, it's going to be a lot of people. So when you click on an individual employee, once you create their objective, it's easy to see, all of their information. But if you have a bunch of people, you're going to want to use this Excel spreadsheet, which allows you to see a row for every objective. It's going to make it a lot easier to use. 2 Thursdays ago at Dr. Tobin's managers meeting, that was sort of what I referred to when we started talking about, some of us have a lot of people and a lot to look at. This is the report that Collis created on the fly for us to make that easier. So now we're going to talk about getting our objectives in there. So in order to make sure that we are doing the work we need to do every quarter and checking ourselves to ensure that we are successfully executing the strategic plan, every employee is going to have to start a maximum of 4 individual objectives. So for those of you who created unit plans, this is going to look very familiar. This is my unit plan. And so I've gone ahead and done the work of adding my employee objectives on this same spreadsheet. So deans, you find that you may want to add rows in a different color here to help you keep up with who's going to get what objective. And so you can label them and put a name on them. That's not required. This is just something I did for me. So it would all be in one place. For Astrid, since you don't write the unit plan, you'll need to get with James and let him share with you what his unit plan objectives are, and the two of you will collaborate on coming up with what your employee objectives will be. So you can see here that I have 4 outlined here, 5 actually. What we want to do is you're putting in a maximum of 4 objectives that can be completed by September 30th. So this is maybe a little bit new, a different part of the conversation that we had not had earlier, but Dr. Tobin wants us to focus in these employee objectives on things that can be completed by September the 30th. Now, it may be, as you can see with mine, I have some September 30th objectives here, but I also know that this objective, this is something that I have to do that I can't complete until April 30. So go ahead and put in your September 30th objectives for your employees. You can create a max of 4 on the create side. But then let's say September 30th, your employee rushes through, they do everything they're supposed to do, and now you can add up to 10 objectives. So those first 4 go in by September 30th. If they finish them all and sort of now they're ready to move on and do another objective for the next quarter, then you can add up to 6 more. But there can only be a maximum of 10. And it is not required to have 10. It's just that's depending on, say for instance, I know in James's area, for instance, let's say that things happen like dominoes in some of the projects that they do down there. Well, first this space has to be cleaned and prepared before this work can be done. So if this objective is completed September 30th, then a new one can be added that would have to be completed by December, etc. All right, so let's go back to the actual entry screen. if you have never entered a unit plan objective for this employee before, then you're going to always click on create first. Once you've created the first one and you've saved, if you want to go back and look at the employee's objectives again, you will use update. So I think I did some, oh wait, maybe I deleted mine. Oh good, I already did it. Because I was going to say, wait a second, I have to delete mine before I can hit create again. But thankfully I did it yesterday. So I'm going to go ahead and create a unit plan for myself. Oh, now it's saying when creating a goal and objective. Maybe I did have one. Oh, update. Oh, it's saying I have one, but I don't. No. Okay, create employee objectives. Ah, there I was working. Sorry, I saw that error message. Okay, so this is the form, and it is very simple. It is much simpler for employee objectives than it is for unit plan strategies. So that's a good thing. What you're going to do is define the year. So right now we're planning for 21-22, and you'll see that more fields have sort of appeared once you choose that. It's going to have your VP's name listed here, who your supervisor is, your name here as the supervisor, and then this is going to be a drop-down list of your employees. So I don't have any employees that report to me, so I only have myself that I'm going to be entering today for. But the deans, when you click there, you're going to have a long list appear. And you will choose the employee who you're writing the objectives for. Then at this point, you're going to, if you have your handy unit plan form here, you're going to go ahead and do this process the same way you did the unit plan. This specific objective relates to goal 1, objective 1.1. So I will choose goal 1, utilizing the academic year last year as a baseline. We're going to increase the number of graduates and credentials by 20% over the next 2 years. My objective relates to this goal, and then specifically to objective 1.1, which is that 2 weeks prior to the start of the term, at momentum loss points, 100% of students will get a communication. I think that was right. Yeah, 1.1, just making sure. Okay, so now I'm going to paste in my objective, which I have written beforehand. And that is something I want to say. I think you should definitely write these beforehand somewhere else and then paste them in here. Sort of have done that work. Don't sort of sit here and craft your objectives in this system, because if it happens to time out, then you'll have lost information, and we don't want that to happen. So have your objectives written before you log in to enter them here. So I've pasted in my statement objective. So I would please urge you not to just paste the same thing in the name. Do not do that. This is a short field that is only 60 characters long, that we want you to come up with a short statement that will tell you what this objective is about. So that way, when you're sitting with your employees at September 30 for those, quarterly meetings, you've got a quick reference by saying, okay, this is the name of this one. This is the one I want to talk about now. And with the unit plan, same way, it is going to automatically number these for you. So this is the first objective under 1.1, so it will become 1.1.1. So that is just a quick reference for you. Your 1.1.1 is not going to be the same as my 1.1.1. It's just, like I say, a tool for us to stay organized. So this one is by September 30th, Leah Jones will produce FPAT reports for advisors and program coordinators for students who are eligible to receive a credential they may not be enrolled in. So I'm going to just call this FPAT reporting for advisors and program coordinators. Just a short name. So at this point, I'm going to check myself and make sure that this objective is two things: time-bound and measurable. And I know this is something that Dr. Tobin has referred to every time we've met to talk about the strategic plan. But you need to make sure that you have a time frame established and a measurement. So, sorry about that. So I need to make sure that mine has a measurement, but really it doesn't. So at this point I would say, okay, wait a second, I'm missing a piece. I don't have a measurement. I don't have a number in here anywhere. So by September 30th, Leah will produce FPAT reports for how many advisors? 100% of advisors and program coordinators to find out which students can get a credential. So now I have to say when I'm going to have this done by. I'm going to have it done by the end of first quarter. And where am I going to look to make sure that it happened? Well, I'm going to look at the FPAT colleague report. And that's it. That is all you have to identify. Those are all the fields we have for an objective. So I've said for this employee, their first objective is going to be this. This is when they're going to have it done by, and this is where the data is going to be housed so that I can make sure that the objective was completed. And that will be whatever system. It could be other documentation that isn't in a database. It doesn't matter. This just gives you a spot to say how you're going to document their success. So at this point, I'm going to hit save. My first objective is done. If I've got a little bit of time, I can go ahead and add another objective for this employee, or I can hit done. I'm going to add one more. So I'm going to keep rocking and rolling and do another objective. So let's see. Where's another one? Okay. So this one is my next one I'm going to enter. And it's a September 30th one as well, which is the ones I want to enter right now. So let's get it in here. This one was 1.3. So goal 1, objective 1.3, which has to do with technology. So this is assessment cycle. By September 30th, Leah Jones will ensure that 100% of programs or offices across all divisions of the college submit unit plan results, individual employee objective results, and SLO results for the 2021 cycle. Those are always due around September 15th. So I'm going to ask myself, is it time bound? Yes. I've said when I'm going to have it done by. And is it measurable? Yes. I'm going to make sure 100% of programs have done it. And I'm going to choose which quarter it should be done by. Now, let's say, for instance, this is something that your employee should have done by September 30th, but maybe it's something they do every semester or every quarter. You can go ahead and click all these boxes if it's something that you're going to continue to check on every time you meet with them quarterly throughout the year. But in this case, for mine, this cycle, this action only happens once in a year. I have another one for everything that happens in the April time frame. So for this one, I'm just going to click first quarter because that's all I need. And what's the data source? In this case, it's going to be the ECM strategic planning module or application and the compliance assist planning module. So now I'm going to save this objective, and at this point, I'm going to click done. And yes, I'm going to save everything for this employee. So now at this point, it's saved and it's taken me back to the main menu. So now if I'm ready to enter for another employee, I'm going to click, oops, wrong one, create again. And then choose another employee from the drop-down list and enter their objectives. And so on and so on. So now let's talk about updating them. Let's say I've met with my employee to sort of approve what their objectives are, and from that conversation, I realize that I have edits, that things that need to change. I'm going to click on Update Employee Objectives, and then from this drop-down list are going to be all of the people who I have entered objectives for. Now, I can see everybody. That's why I'm seeing Lee, which Melissa has entered. But you are only going to see your people. Just a heads up on that. So this is the plan for Leah. And I can see all of the objectives that I entered, one after the other. So if I need to update the individual objectives, I click Edit. And then I have the opportunity to make changes or updates just by clicking into the fields and updating them. All right, so I'm going to come back and talk about this in a minute. All right, okay. So all of the objectives, let's say, have been entered for that employee. So at this point, if you scroll down to the bottom, this is your manager review section. When you have the quarterly meetings with your employees to talk about their progress on all of their objectives, this is where you're going to put in your notes. So after you sort of have talked to them and y'all both have agreed on what the objectives are, then you would click here. So for mine, Williette would log in and click Approved, Save. Then you've got the quarterly checkoff process. So every quarter when you meet with them, you're able to click, okay, this is my first quarter, and you give them a sort of rating for where they are with all of those max of 4 objectives that you entered for them. So you can say, no progress made, they're progressing, improvement needed, or complete. So you're not rating their performance on each individual objective here. You are rating it on their objectives as a whole. So for instance, let's say that Williette logs in and she said, okay, Leah has completed 3 of them, and one of them she hadn't started at all. Then there's improvement needed. I need help because obviously one of my objectives is not getting done. Then she can go in the box here and talk about the specific objectives. Leah has completed 1, 2, and 3. However, she is not going to be able to complete the 4th objective until she gets professional development or until she works with so-and-so, whatever it is. Or, of course, if they complete all 4, you can go ahead and hit complete and save and enter any specific information that you want about what they need. I will remind you, though, do not get very personal or too specific about an employee's performance in this section or in this database. Of course, that's something that you do over, over in your employee sort of system that Maria is in charge of. That's a part of State Tech. But this is going to give you an opportunity to talk about what your employee needs to be successful. So then every quarter when you log in here, when you click on the quarter, then the box will appear for you to add notes or more information into. So as a manager, that is your part of it. You enter the objectives for the employee, and then after your quarterly meetings, you log in here and add information into this manager review section. Now, I know that earlier when I clicked on edit up here, for each individual objective, the employee themselves will be able to log into the system and give themselves a self-assessment rating or self-reflection on where they are on each individual objective. Now, this is going to be a separate training that I do for every employee across campus, but I wanted to go ahead and show you in case you may be wondering, well, am I supposed to fill this out too? No, the ones at the bottom of each objective are for the employee. So at the end of quarter one, if, this one, I've completed it, it's done. As the employee, have the opportunity to log in and just rate myself. So I can say completed, in progress, like I'm doing it. I just haven't finished yet. It's almost done. Not started yet, which means I need assistance, or canceled, postponed, or modified. There is certainly a possibility that by December, you and your supervisor, or you as a supervisor, will meet with your employees, and you'll realize that whatever this objective was about, it's no longer needed. For whatever reason, you don't need it. In that case, you would use the canceled, postponed, or modified button. And then, there would certainly be notes further down that the supervisor would add. But this is a new part of it that we had not previously discussed, that Dr. Tobin was excited about entering, though, because you want the employee to be able to say, okay, am I really moving along and getting things done, and I'm making good progress? So it's not any text that will be entered. It is just these bullet buttons that they'll choose. Okay, so I know there was a lot. Really quickly, can I answer any questions for anyone?
Leah.
Yes.
If we have multiple employees that are doing the same objective, do we have to create an objective for each employee, or is there a way to duplicate it?
There is not. It's very individualized, and here's why. So in especially, say, the case of physical plant, it may be, or IT, let's say 100 computers have to be installed by X date. Well, and there's 4 employees involved. That becomes 25, 25, 25, 25. But depending on skill set, it may be different. So we did not set it up so that it would copy. Now, you certainly can copy paste and do them, but as far as you enter it one time and say it's for this person, this person, this person, no. They do need to be entered for each individual employee. That's why I suggest doing them all over here on this spreadsheet, so it's very easy for you to pop over to the other document, copy the text, paste it in as you go through each individual employee on the drop down.
Okay.
Leah, I have a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to differentiate between the strategies we've created into the unit plan for our program coordinators and then the objectives. Mm-hmm. So currently, when we did the unit plans, all of the coordinators have about 30 strategies that they'll be tracking and performing and keeping track of.
Right.
Now, these objectives, I'll still create up to 4 objectives for each coordinator, but the objectives will be something different than the strategies.
Not necessarily. What you're going to do is, of the objective or strategies that you have, you're going to choose for each employee the 4 most important that can be completed by September 30th for each employee. And those may not be the same depending on their program and what their individual program needs may be. So you may have, Dave, who's really, he needs to focus on enrollment. And then you may have, another program coordinator, Mike, he's going to be more focused on, things that he can do to help with persistence. But all of those individual employee objectives are still going to support one of those strategies that you wrote in about, having increased graduation. So it really it needs to be more individualized, Richard, than you just copying down the strategy into what the employee needs to do. It really does need to be more specific to the person in this case.
And the system that we're looking at when we meet with the employee quarterly based on the objectives and we're kind of tracking the progress,
yeah.
How does that fit into when we meet with the coordinators to see how they're doing on their strategies? Like the things that we had, like all employees will have, announcements in D2L 2 weeks prior to class and things like that, which really relates to all faculty.
Right.
And how will those strategies kind of trickle down to all faculty? Because right now they're in the coordinator. Is that something eventually the coordinators will assign to people in their departments?
Well, the way the individual employee setup is now, the dean is doing that work. However, I really think that you've got to get your program coordinators involved to get their unit plan done. They're going to have to coordinate with faculty. So when it comes to individual employees, you're entering that. But I would say the best thing to do is when you're having the quarterly meetings to invite everyone to the hour and then, kind of meet with everyone together to talk about the unit plan, but then you still have got to carve out, 10 to 15 minutes for those individual objective times as well. So honestly, I would say personally, the best thing to do is to do it over Zoom because you can control little spots of time and you're not having to have people come and go. I mean, that's just you certainly can organize it any way you'd like, but I think that would be the easiest way to manage it because you've got to touch every employee, but you also have to make sure the program coordinator that there's conversation that's happening. And for the strategies in a unit plan, the best way to do that is if you can get everybody together to talk at the same time. Hope that made sense. Any other questions? Now, I will say that there is going to be more, really my charge in this process is teaching you how to use the software and answer those types of questions. Dr. Tobin is going to prepare you and offer you more information that's specific to actually the process and the work that you're going to be doing individually with your employees and sort of how to manage their expectations and support them in completing their individual objectives. So if you have questions that are more specific to, well, how am I supposed to deal with this process, or what information do I need to provide? Those questions can go to Dr. Tobin. They can come to me and then I can forward them on. But really, I'm sort of just dealing with making sure we get everything stored in the database, making sure that you don't have problems with getting everything in. But if, like I say, you can forward those questions to me, and if I don't know, I'm going to forward you on to Dr. Tobin. But please know that additional instructions and handouts and support for how the actual quarterly meetings should go, and not even like a checklist of like questions you're supposed to be asking and topics that should be covered. Those types of things are coming from Dr. Tobin, which I think will be helpful just to make sure, because you're only going to have a little bit of time, to talk to each employee every quarter. And so I know that you all are going to want to have specific bullet points of, okay, let's cover these quick items so we can move on to them. Any other questions?
Yeah, Lee, I want to clarify this because when Richard asked you that question,
Yeah.
maybe I misunderstood what he was asking you, but I think I'm on the same page as him. But because you have several strategies on here. I mean, it's numerous ones.
Mm-hmm.
And you're saying we're going to do 4. We're going to put 4 objectives in there. We can add later on. You can go up to 6 more, so that's 10 in all, right? That we're monitoring per employee.
Right.
Okay, I'm good there. But then if you look at our strategic plans, we have way more than those 10. So when are they going to be evaluated on everything else that we have put in here? Because I mean, we've done all this, and I thought this was the plan, and this is what we're going to be evaluating them on. Now we're doing some specific ones. So when are we going to evaluate them on the other ones? That makes sense. Do you understand what I'm saying?
It does.
Richard, is that kind of what you were asking?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at as well.
So let's say, for instance, in your case, Billy, you've got Deborah Jones for business. And under her, you know, business, she's got how many faculty, 2 or 3? Okay. So this is just a possibility. I'm just throwing this out here. You're going to need to meet with Deborah about her business unit plan. And she has got to make sure that that's happening with her faculty. So she's got to collaborate with them. You may want to have a, say, half-hour meeting set up in Zoom where Deborah is in. And you talk with Deborah specifically about her unit plan strategies and where she's at with them all. Then at that point, you can bring, you know, all of the other faculty, everybody in her, you know, program, all of her program faculty in together. And at that point, you can have discussion about the unit plan as a whole. Okay, guys, these are the unit plan strategies. Where do all of you feel you're at? So that way it's more collaborative. But then at that point, then you have to talk to each of them individually for, 10 minutes. It does not have to be a long time, about their individual employee strategies. And even though those individual employee strategies are going to support those unit plan strategies, they are going to be individual and specific and personal. So you may have what Deborah's personal individual strategy or objectives are going to be may have to do with how she interacts with her faculty and what she asks her faculty to do. So by September 30th, Deborah Jones is going to ensure that all of her faculty members do X, Y, Z so that this happens. But then for each individual faculty member, they have to know that me personally, in order to make sure that I'm completing my objectives, I have to do this specific thing. I have to either, pick up 10 new advisees. I have to send out communications. I have to, make sure that this event happens, that I do this part of a recruiting event that's specific to my program, those types of things. And you as the dean have a very clear picture of what an individual employee's strengths and weaknesses are. So this is a great opportunity for you as a supervisor to say, okay, I know that you need a little bit more help in this area. Maybe it's advising. Maybe this individual employee, one of their objectives is to complete advising training by September 30th. That's just an example. It might be something that's specific to professional development. It might be something that is specific to a recruiting event that they're a part of. That really is up to you. Just keep in mind that you're going to have to do 2 levels of checks as a dean. What happens for each individual person, and making sure that that program as a whole has done the strategies that are specific to that degree program. Did that help? Any other questions? Alrighty, so this training is going to be posted on YouTube this afternoon, so if you want to refer back to it. But as always, I'm here to help in any way that I can. If you have any problems with the software, it's not working the way you think it should, if you're having problems logging in, you can always reach out to me and we can talk over Zoom, or I can pop over to your office and help however you need. Thanks so much for attending, guys. Talk to you later.